Good afternoon, fellow Plexers. Today we're going to try to help Travis figure out why his Deadpool 2 movie and his Once Upon a Deadpool movie both scan in as Once Upon a Deadpool. I'm going to try to cover all possible bases and how someone might troubleshoot this issue. So first of all, I'm not an official YouTuber. I don't care if you follow my channel. You don't have to click subscribe. I am a retired guy. I retired about 4.5 years ago at age 55. In 2019, I bought a Synology NAS and installed my first server that I could share with friends and family after playing around with Plex on and off for about a year before that. I've always been interested in DVRing my own stuff and had DVR'd before that, and I used to be a big XBMC guy way in the past, going back to like version 9 before it became Kodi and stuff like that. So I've always had a huge personal music collection, and everything just led to Plex, and I have time on my hands, so I try to help out other members in the various Plex groups and even sometimes on Reddit. So again, not a pro YouTube. I'm not going to hawk a VPN. I'm not going to say subscribe. I'm just going to make videos when I feel like making videos or to help somebody out. So with that said, there'll be a lot of ums and ahs in this video, and if you don't like it, stop watching. But anyway, so this is how he's named his media, and what I have here is 3 dummy files. Let me start one so you can see the video and listen to it. Plexers. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. So they're just 5-second dummy video files. This way I can actually start a video and not get in trouble with YouTube for a copyright strike. All 3 of these are the same. Plexers. Test 1, 2. So I've got a little list of 9 things I want to cover. Let's see if I can manage to talk and check my list as I go through things. But I'm going to skip ahead. This might be an issue that there might be some bad embedded metadata, and if the Plex library settings have changed or the agent settings have changed, Plex may be scanning embedded library or embedded data first instead of simply relying on the file name. So there's a couple ways you can check this. One is with VLC, so let me open this back up. Plexers, test 1. So while the video is open in VLC, go to Tools, and then Media Information, and you can see I've embedded this bad title called Bad Embedded Metadata. Now, Plex may try to pick that up and match it to whatever it can. And sometimes you can simply erase it and hit save, and sometimes you can save that and sometimes you can't. If you can't, open it up in MKV Toolnix. And in case anybody's wondering, this is a Linux desktop. I run Elementary OS, which is a derivative of Ubuntu. It's not the latest version of Elementary. Oh, actually it is. It's version 7. My laptop still has the previous version. So anyway, I'm just going to open this up with MKV Toolnix. And if this is the issue, you can click on the video file, and you do not need a name. You can just get rid of it, or you can give it the proper name. But it's better to get rid of it and maybe adjust your library and agent settings. So just by doing that and hitting Start Multiplexing, this file is so small it finished in an instant. But because MKV files and MP4 files are really just containers, like a zip file, with media files inside it, you can have one video, multiple audio, and multiple subtitle tracks, plus chapter things and stuff like that. You can use this tool to uncheck a Spanish audio track or to uncheck German and French and Spanish subtitles, leaving only embedded English subtitles, and sometimes things like subtitles aren't flagged properly. Or even the language. You can see how this says EN for the English language code. Well, if you had a foreign film and the language wasn't labeled and it was in French, Plex doesn't know what to do with it automatically to then automatically turn on any English subtitles. So you'd want to make sure the language was labeled for that foreign film, French or German, whatever it happened to be. And that way, if you had an embedded English subtitle with your server, you could set the server to play for subtitles only, and it would then play English subtitles for foreign film. Or equally, with an English film with English audio, if it had 3 embedded subtitle tracks but they weren't flagged properly, and the fourth one wasn't flagged as yes, Plex wouldn't know which subtitle was which. So you could flag the default one, the hearing impaired one, and the fourth subtitle to straighten out embedded metadata issues. And of course, your audio track should always have a language. So anyway, that's how you can check metadata. And because we saved the file, we now have another copy which simply gets the parentheses 1 added to it. And if I open that up in VLC and go to Tools, Media Information. Oh, what did I do here? Plexers, test 1, 2, 3. Sometimes I can't talk and do what I need to do here. Alright, so I'm going to do this again. Make sure I didn't screw up. So let's open it with MKV Toolnix. I talked right over myself. Alright, so this track has the Goofy movie in it. And let's go back to VLC. Plexers. And I'm not seeing the Goofy movie track. So I did a lot of talking for nothing, but I'm not going to stop because this is the real world. I don't know why I'm not seeing that here. I'm just seeing the title. So maybe VLC isn't the tool to fix with this, and it's simply fixing your library information. I swore I've done this in the past, but apparently it's not working out with this demonstration. Let me just get rid of that this time. So if that false title was screwing it up, it's now gone with a second copy that I just made with MKV Toolnix. But for whatever reason, that false label in MKV Toolnix wasn't showing up in VLC. So there's no reason to remake this video. Alright, so moving on, let's go to Plex's naming convention for movies. This is your Bible. When I started my Plex server, my file names were atrocious. It might be the movie name with a release, with a space in between .mp4, .mkv, and if Plex matched it, it matched it. I use FixMatch as if it was a desired feature that you were supposed to use. And I slowly learned to name better. So Batman Begins would become Batman Begins just like this. And then I wanted to kind of know just by looking at a file whether it was 1080p or 720p. So I'd have this, and then I'd have dash or space dash space 1080p or 720p .mp4.mpk. And there's a Plex guide that shows how that's good. That's called the versioning as opposed to addition. So you can combine everything, but that would be versioning. Well, my final filebot expression that I use to rename things quickly incorporates in the database number from TMDB. I can make filebot use the IMDb number too, but I prefer using TMDB. Doesn't matter, but you do have to remember that you should use one or the other as your naming Bible, because occasionally
you have a text message.
Occasionally, the year could be listed different at IMDb than it is at the movie database, and I've seen it up to 2 years difference. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen. So just stick with one or the other. But this is the convention I like. So that's the naming guide. Always worth checking out. So if I was going to name these movies manually, I would just do that. I'd copy it from TMDB. And again, this is Travis's name. So let me do this. Let me copy another dummy file in. So that's the basic, most compliant file name you can get. And because this is a Chrome shortcut, I've got to do this. And let me just see what I get here. I'm going to do a little editing, but let me paste in all this extra stuff just to get that database number. Alright, so I grabbed the database number from the URL. This is more of a file name that I like, because it has, oh sorry, my mistake. I typed edition instead of TMDB. So this is what I like. Plex will always find that without a hitch with default library settings. So let me bring in Plex server. Alright, so I currently have 3 servers going. If I go to settings and I go here, this is my original server that I've had for 4 years, well, since the spring of 2019. This is my new server I'm working on a DS1520 Plus. This one's on a Synology DS1019 Plus. This server, this NAS is going to eventually become a backup device that's off-site for my media collection. And I am experimenting around with Linux installed bare metal on my 1.5-year-old i5 HP Pavilion laptop with the Intel, I'm stretching now, Intel Iris Xe graphics, which I'm not sure how they compare with a regular UHD, I think it's 720 or 750 iGPU in a regular new i5. This is an 11 gen processor. Pretty good experiment so far. I can start 4 transcoded 4K streams without an issue. 3 is kind of pushing it on my Synology NASs with their Celeron CPUs with an iGPU on board. So anyway, let's create a test library. So I want to change to this server, and I'll go down to libraries and I'll add a library, pick movie, space test, and I'll point it towards my folder structure. So Plex is running as a package. I'm not sure if I'm going to move to a Docker. I was having huge issues with this server in a Docker that still exists with a package, and it's a whole nother issue that I figured out that I want to do a video on in the future. But because my library is so extensive and I like to use the automatic scanning feature, there's something called the IO Notify with Linux, and that has to be increased on the NAS because it's too small for a large library, and the effects I see are that intro deductions hang because of that. So I'm experimenting around with my laptop to see if I might want to move to a NUC, an i5 NUC, and just set up scheduled scanning. My issue doesn't exist if you set up scheduled scanning. If you look for file system changes, that's where the issue pops up. But I'm kind of digressing. So let me go into Plex. Let me go back up. I got lost here. Double click too fast. Into Plex. Into my movie library sort folder. This is my main movie library, kids, so on, documentary. And here's the test folder I created. So then we'll go to advanced. The only setting I would recommend someone changing is to determine if they want automatic subtitles or not. So I like that, but only if I have 2 or more movies. Everything else should stay the same with the default library. Should use the Plex Movie Scanner and the Plex Movie Agent. Can't go wrong with this. So let me click into that library. And let's see, we've got a server update on my older NAS, but I'm a little bit more current on the newer one. And I just installed this one yesterday. Took quite a while to figure out how to access my files on the Synology NAS as a permanent share to the laptop, but I got that accomplished too. Alright, so there's nothing in here. We can slide this off screen a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Travis's 2 files and we will create some folder structure. Somebody didn't like what I wrote because it was too much. Alright, so I try to explain things completely, and sometimes people don't like that if it isn't in 2 sentences. And I can't help that. And it's funny how someone has to make a point of telling you they didn't read what you wrote instead of just ignoring it. Okay, so we have these 2 pretty much as Travis would have had them on his system. So I will cut them. And where am I? I don't need 2 of those open. Let me paste them into that test directory. And we'll bring Plex back over. And we'll see if it starts scanning that library. Actually, I'm not even sure if I have automatic scans on that library. So let's scan it manually. Alright, so they both scanned in correctly as he named it. So I'm going to show how to name things better quickly, but my suspicion is that either one of the files has embedded metadata that's screwing this up, and who knows why, or that the agent settings are incorrect. So Travis or anybody else can create a test library and then bring 2 windows open, logged into app.plex.tv, and compare the settings one to the other. And these are the library settings I'm talking about. So make sure the old library matches the new test one. That's easy. A little bit trickier is to go down to, is it libraries? Nope, it's libraries here. Under settings. Nope, it's not. It's right above that. It's agents. You want to use the default info or the default setup that Plex had. So we'll just run through these. None of this has been changed. Movies with personal media on top, local media assets below. Can uncheck personal media. You can uncheck personal assets. Plex Movie Legacy. The only thing I have checked is local media assets. You can't uncheck Plex Legacy, and these are unchecked. And this is the order. The movie database, I can't uncheck it, but it's below local media assets. Fan art and Plex Movie Legacy are unchecked. Let's do the shows while we're at it. Personal media shows is this. TVDB is this. The movie database for TV shows is this. So I would check these and check the file. So if we back up, we see they found themselves okay, pulled all the metadata. And then something else, if you're having trouble with Plex, even after you've renamed something and you've checked everything else, you may have to do the Plex dance. And that involves copying the media off your server, go into the settings and troubleshooting. I'm sorry, it doesn't. That involves copying the media off your server. Where's my test movie library? And that involves rescanning. And that involves emptying the trash. Not my day, is it? Well, maybe something's going on with Plex, because these should have disappeared and not just said unavailable. It's the first time on my server today. I don't think I have a list Chrome shortcut to Plex's status page. So it's status.plex.tv, and I'm not seeing anything on my phone that might be an issue. But this is a little bit of weirdness. These should have deleted themselves, and I thought I had automatic scanning turned on. You're seeing me troubleshoot my own server in real time right now. Alright, so I did have those settings turned on. Run a partial scan and scan my library automatically. Let me turn them off. Let me scan the library again. Let me empty the trash again. Well, Travis, there may be a bigger Plex issue going on. I've never had this happen in a demonstration. Definitely not there. That is one of the strangest things I've ever seen. Even refreshing metadata doesn't do it. This can't really fix match media that's not there. There's no hidden files there. I just did the keystroke for that. Well, I am at a loss. So, I'm going to pause this video and maybe come back to it, because this is the strangest thing going, and I'm at a loss. I don't want to stop the video, but I don't know what to say. Maybe Plex is having an issue server-wise, but to simply scan for media that's no longer there should not involve Plex whatsoever. And I went from the guy who thought I could figure anything out to being stumped. Well, I really can't give up. I'm not the type to give up. And I know this is pretty boring, just watching me do nothing. Let me grab something. What am I going to grab? I can't spell Scooby, can I? Let me just grab a name. A name of anything. Let me go back in and turn automatic scanning back on like I had it. And let's see if we get any activity. Okay, so this is really, really weird. I don't know why, but it automatically scanned that this time and it removed it. Maybe I've never run a test with an empty library before. Well, it detected the changes earlier when I added it. Alright, so I found a small quirk, so I'm going to continue on with the video. Excuse the 5 or 8 minute delay. So, we're back to moving the bad files onto your library. And you scan the library files, you go to manage library, you empty the trash, and then you go into your settings to troubleshooting and you clean your bundles. And if you've never done that, go make a cup of coffee and drink the whole thing slowly. It'll take a while to finish. Okay, so it didn't take long to finish here. So we'll come back, and this time we'll move the 2 right movies. We'll cut them and we'll put them back in that library. And let's take that one back out.
Message.
Let's just delete that one now. And at least with a couple movies in there, Plex is acting correctly. Alright, so I know this is getting long, but I also wanted to demonstrate what you can do with FileBot. So these are the pretty decent file names. Once Upon a Deadpool with a year in parentheses and a space in between is perfectly Plex compliant. A space dash space is exactly how Plex shows to name for versioning. I could also have a 720p version, 480p version, or a 4K version, all in the same folder just like this. This is fine too, as long as you've got that space dash space. Now what I've started to do is Plex's TV naming guide is now calling for extra information to be put in parentheses, which causes the Plex scanner to ignore all that information for TV shows. Now, I've added this to my FileBot expressions for movies just with the assumption that Plex may go to that in their movie library naming guide eventually too. They may never do it, but it's not hurting. So that's how I would do it, and I can do it automatically with FileBot. So let me open up FileBot. Now if I just use the default bindings, I would click match, and because it's a movie, I'd scroll down or slide down to movie mode and pick the movie database. And you'll see it's just going to rename it Deadpool 2 with a year and Once Upon a Deadpool. It's going to get rid of the extra information that was there. I have a bunch of different expressions. My default one renames it in place, and you can see how FileBot could automatically detect that this one was a theatrical cut based on how the original one was named. FileBot has some heuristics, if I'm saying it correctly. I don't know how they work. If you actually have the regular version of Deadpool 2, and which is the theatrical cut, and a special edition, 60-70% of the time FileBot will know it even if you don't and rename it as it is. It doesn't always work, but I add the edition tag to my expression, and I also add in the TMDB number. So if I go into Edit Preset and go to that one, I've got a lot going on with this. This adds the name and year of the movie, the TMDB ID number, and then the edition tag if there is one. And then it adds the video format, the video codec, so I know whether it's an H.264 or H.265, or in this case, with a dummy file, an AVC codec. Also the audio format, 2-channel, 6-channel, and the codec used. And then the developer of FileBot, I can't think of his handle right now, helped me come up with some coding that will look inside the container file to see if there's embedded subtitles. And if it finds an English, a single, multiple English subtitle, it's going, and other subtitles, it's going to label it with the brackets ENG-SUB. If it finds a foreign subtitle or an unlabeled subtitle, it's going to label it UNDSUB. So I can just look at a file. Sometimes you might have a subtitle that's English that's unlabeled, and I can just rename it with FileBot quickly and see that I have an issue I need to address with MKV Toolbox. Just FileBot is a great program to use to rename and discover things. And if I add in the curly Q brackets SUBT, that instructs FileBot on how to auto-discover the language of external subtitles and apply it. Well, really, it only works with SRT subtitles. If you have the .sub and the .idx combination of two files to make a subtitle, those two files can contain multiple subtitles between them. But so this is really the SDH version subtitle that you're using this for. So if I want to create folder structure, I have another expression for that, and you can see how it's going to rename this with a proper folder that also includes the TMDB number, which I'll do right now. So if I refresh it, it left the original folder, which I can now delete. And it upgraded the folder names to include the TMDB number. and inside you've got a more descriptive and completely compliant Plex file name. So I include the space dash space as the separator that Plex uses in their versioning document, where in the TV show library naming document you just need the brackets for extra information. I'm kind of covering myself both ways right now. If Plex does make that change in the movie library eventually, I can eliminate that space dash space and just have a space between these two, and I'll be fine. Just trying to prep for the future, and this may never come to pass. All right, let me check to see if I left anything out of my little list. No, I just got caught up on why Plex wouldn't remove the two media pieces. And let's see if it picked up the changes, because we weren't paying attention to that. So it automatically picked up the new names automatically. A lot of people don't have the automatic scanning on, so you'd have to scan manually. And again, I apologize for that delay. I don't know why Plex wasn't removing these. Now let me just do one more test. Let's cut them on it. Let's cut one out. Alright, so Plex is not automatically detecting that. And it did immediately when I took the manual scan. I guess for some reason Plex doesn't like a completely empty library, or there's a little bug going on right now. I don't know, but it tripped me up with this video. So, hopefully this is helpful to Travis, and that I've showed him some tricks. And again, I suspect there might be some poor metadata embedded in, and MKV Toolnix is one of the two tools, that and VLC. You can check for it. And just see if it's got a funny track name like this one does, or see if there's a funny name embedded with a VLC. I guess there must be two ways to embed things, and I'm not fully schooled on that. Anyway, I hope this is helpful to Travis and anybody else who might be watching for the same reason. Happy Plexing.